Welcome to episode 4 of the Hangin with Gannon podcast. I'm Pat Gannon, your host and lender for life, with 26 years of helping families secure their dream homes through intelligent financing. And we're now on all platforms wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribing to the podcast helps us out, and it gets you the new episodes as soon as they post. The full podcast, along with our social media clips, can also be found on my YouTube channel. So subscribe to that as well, and that will put you in the Hangin with Gannon inner circle. And who doesn't want to be in the Hangin with Gannon inner circle? Today's guest is Tim James, serving clients throughout Maryland and Washington, D.C. Tim's known for his pragmatic and personal approach to real estate, helping clients buy, sell, and rent homes with confidence. As both an accredited buyer representative and a real estate negotiation expert, he brings a sharp skill set and a genuine commitment to making real estate feel simple and human. Tim, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Pat. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you, and I want to get the listeners to know more about you. Why don't you give us your origin story? Where did you grow up? What were you doing before real estate? And what was that aha moment that got you into real estate?
Yeah, so I'm a Maryland native. I spent the first half of my life in Howard County, and then at the age of 18, moved to Anne Arundel County, where I currently reside. Prior to real estate, I was actually in automotive service management. I did that for about 11 years or so, and that actually helped polish my skill set in regard to communication and building relationships in real estate. I had that aha moment when I actually purchased my first home in 2015, and I was very involved, and I was intrigued by the intricacies of the transaction itself, more so focused on that than actually purchasing a home.
So between the times that you've been in real estate, but even growing up in Maryland, how have you seen the Maryland market, specifically maybe Howard County and Arundel County, evolve over those last few years?
Yeah, so I've definitely noticed, or 3 market cycles stuck with me. I graduated in 2007 from high school. So, right as the Great Recession was, coming forth, and just seeing people go through unemployment and short sales, and it was just, a devastating impact on the market and the economy itself. If you fast forward to 2015, when I'd purchased my home, it was a more, the market had rebounded. It was a little bit more relaxed.
Opening up a little bit, yep.
Indeed. And then fast forward again to 2021, when I get into the market, it was a heck of a market to cut your teeth in, but it was fast-paced, competitive. It was a frenzy. And that's where I was able to, learn everything I need to know about real estate. And now that we're in a bit more of a relaxed yet still seller's market, there's a lot more breathing room, which is nice.
Well, first of all, maybe just start by saying you made me feel old when you said 2007 you were in high school. I recall vividly that real estate market in the 07, 08, 09 time frame, and that was a challenging market. But yeah, it's definitely shows you that the market doesn't stay the same all the time. It's going to be different, and you have to be able to be nimble in understanding the different markets, and you need a representative that understands that. Of course, you mentioned that you grew up in Howard County, moved to Anne Arundel County. What would you say are the biggest differences between those markets, Howard County versus Anne Arundel County?
I would say that Howard County is the textbook example of a planned community, especially Columbia and everything that surrounds it. Great schools, solid infrastructure, and everything was just very well thought out. Whereas Anne Arundel County, wonderful county, currently live there. Anne Arundel's more varied in its makeup. You have waterfront homes, you have historical Annapolis. Down south, you have rural areas. And then you also have more suburban areas near BWI. This means infrastructure and planning can look very different depending on where you're at in the county.
Yeah. So when you're, maybe I'm a first-time home buyer coming in and I'm unsure of those, is there any, do you direct them in a certain way? Obviously, maybe you're listening to what they're saying, but is there a easier market to enter into from a first-time home buyer perspective?
So I think it's all in what your motivation is and, what your plans are to grow within yourself. So Howard County is a bit more structured and predictable, but
Okay.
with a higher price point. Whereas Anne Arundel, you have a varied choice of like lifestyles that you can pursue.
Got it. Got it. Got it. So, like path to real estate. I mean, careers in real estate can be really challenging. What's kept you motivated through all these early years?
I would say early on, getting into the industry and just not knowing a ton about real estate itself. My core advocates, so friends, family, and business partners such as yourself that I met along the way, that really helped support me and propel me into the right direction. But also something that sticks with me now is the ability to grow. Like there's just so much space in real estate to further your knowledge and to better assist families or people that are looking to purchase. And it's just, if you can be a little bit better each day, I think it just sets you apart from the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the podcast today, I remember meeting you very early in your career in 2021, and I came away impressed, just your focus and dedication right away. I mean, it's, between the organization and the understanding of listening. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing that I've found with you is that you listen to what your clients are saying, try to nail it down, and try to point them in the right direction. But just from the very beginning, I kind of saw that there was a rising star there. I'm usually pretty good at picking that up, and I wasn't wrong on that. So really glad that you're on here talking about this. We had some earlier conversations, and I took some notes kind of mentally from some of the things you talked about. You talked about peace of mind and meaningful relationships. Can you walk us through a transaction where that philosophy made a difference?
Sure. So firstly, thank you so much for the kind words. I do appreciate that. So peace of mind is something that you create. It's not something that somebody assumes. You can't really give it to somebody without being intentional. You have to create that peace of mind for the client and for your entire database, essentially. This is a very complex, uncertain process for a lot of people, and you have to assure them that you're taking the wheel, you're controlling everything. You have to be the logical aspect of it, and of course they're going to be emotional. So again, it's just important to instill that feeling in them.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I know we both talk to the clients in the beginning of the process, and oftentimes, certainly the first-time home buyers, more in particular, you hear that, you can hear fear on the other line, like on the side of the line, and you can hear, often hear like, I don't know anything, and that's understandable. These aren't things that are taught in school, there's no class, as far as I'm aware, that says, this is how you buy a house, and this is how you get a mortgage. So the quicker that we can, make them understand that, that they're in good hands, that, this isn't our first rodeo, as they say, I think really gets them that peace of mind that you're talking about, to kind of say, hey, I got some good people in my corner. I don't have to worry. There's things to worry about, of course. You got things that you need to kind of look at when you're looking at houses. But I know my real estate agent, I know my mortgage guy or girl are, got it taken care of for us.
Absolutely. And so the second part of that, creating the lasting and meaningful relationships, people in general don't want to be overly transactional. Like this is a big deal. It's an emotional purchase, and it's a life-changing decision. So they want to know that whoever's in their corner is in there for a long time and for the long haul. And I always tell people just off the jump, like, interview multiple agents, interview multiple lenders. I obviously have, I'm an advocate for myself, but also the people that I work with. Yeah. But you have to feel comfortable with these people, because you want to be able to call them down the line and not have to go through this whole process of asking for a referral, Googling who to use, doing your market research. If you build that relationship up front, like, you have a client for life.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times, you're able, in that initial conversation, hopefully you can, we both do a good job of showing our value, like explaining what we do that maybe separates us from another real estate agent, another mortgage lender. And those are important things to try to get across in the very beginning. So what does a typical transaction look like from your perspective, from the first conversation to the closing?
Right. So I like to front load, and I like to front load education. and it can be a little overwhelming at times, but I think preparation is the most important aspect to a successful transaction. So we educate them on the role of a lender. We educate them on the role of an agent, an inspector, the title company, pretty much anybody whose hands are going to touch this deal. And with that being said, you also have to educate them on timelines and how to move quickly, when to slow down, because sometimes time is our friend. You do want to kind of stretch it out a little bit. Negotiations, for example. The quickest response doesn't always win. If you do a lot of the heavy lifting up front and just remind them throughout the transaction, everything runs pretty smoothly.
Yeah, I think. I think I heard about lender or an agent in the past would just like almost give like this big folder of things, kind of showing them there's a lot of moving parts, but giving them, once again, going back to that peace of mind that yes, there are a lot of different moving parts. I'm going to kind of tell you about these things, but we've got it. It's all under control.
Right.
You know, and if that goes back, like I said, goes back to the peace of mind, I think they're going to be in a much better spot. All right, let's switch gears a little bit here, Tim. I want to really dig into the market a little bit.
Okay.
How would you characterize the Maryland market right now?
So I would say right now we're still in a seller's market. I would say it's a bit of a muted seller's market compared to, let's say, 5 years ago, where everything was competitive, fierce, fast moving. Yeah. The market is absolutely still in a seller's favor, but we are slowly moving back to a balanced market, which isn't a bad thing at all. Like, I feel everybody wins in a balanced market. Buyers have room for, maybe a 30-day close, which we haven't seen in quite some time. Sellers get to, take a little bit more time moving out of their house rather than having a 14-day close. But all in all, a balanced market, everybody wins. But being in the muted sellers market that we are, it's going to continue to drive appreciation, which is good for everybody who currently owns a home.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've certainly noticed a huge difference between what I call the COVID timeframe, where it was most of it was double-digit offers way above list, no contingencies, meaning you're not getting a home inspection, you're not. You probably don't even have a financing contingency in some cases on those things. I always hated that for my buyers, just because it doesn't give them the moment to breathe, to think, to really make sure that they are comfortable with with what they're getting into with that. Are you seeing because a lot of times you see stuff in the news or online or wherever it might be about blanket statements about the market. And I really think that the big thing that we need to focus in, or I try to direct clients to, is understanding this market is very hyper local. Right. Seeing something about saying, real estate's down, or whatever that clickbait title will be, that's a national perspective.
Right.
And what are you seeing maybe hyper local throughout the region in Maryland? Are you seeing different? You said like it's kind of a muted seller's market. Are we seeing that everywhere in Maryland?
So I would say Central Maryland, we're seeing a muted seller's market. Baltimore City, for example, there's a lot more inventory than in its surrounding counties. So I would say that's pretty close, if not already in a balanced market. Similar with the Eastern Shore. Things are just a little bit more slowly paced. It's a slower pace of living. Yeah. And so
shore time, I call it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love shore time.
Yes. I've sold a few homes on the Eastern Shore, and it's been a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. Maybe let's get hyper local, as I said here, and we'll talk about Anne Arundel County and Howard County again, when we're talking about Central Maryland. So that is, that would be what Tim's calling the muted seller's market. What are the average home prices in Anne Arundel County versus Howard County, and how have they recently shifted?
Right. So in Howard County, your average detached single-family home is going to be roughly $775 or so, give or take. Okay. Again, it's actually median, not average. And then in Anne Arundel, you're going to have it at about $585. Now, both counties very different in their appreciation and growth. Whereas Howard County is the higher price point, but we're actually seeing appreciation, not in a bad way, not in an extreme way, but it's tapering off. Like, it's a higher price point. There's been rapid appreciation over the past 5 years. Whereas Anne Arundel County, I checked those stats obviously before we came in here, and year over year is appreciating at roughly 7%.
Okay.
Townhomes aren't too far off. I mean, in Howard County, you're looking at about 480 for your median townhome price. Anne Arundel's 465. So the gap's been bridged there. I think due to Anne Arundel's just kind of mixed use, the residential single family homes in Howard County are a bit larger, a bit more substantial, depending on where you're looking at. But the price point's higher.
Yeah. One of the things that I think I talk a lot about when I have that initial conversation, I don't obviously get super deep into where they're buying, but I talk about counties in particular because oftentimes someone will say, well, what's the monthly payment going to look like on a $600,000 house? And I'm like, well, where are you looking? Because it will make a difference. Property taxes, generally speaking, are going to be higher in Howard County than you'll find in Anne Arundel County. So a similarly priced $600,000 house generally is going to have higher, particularly then if it's in Columbia, they have the Columbia tax additionally. So those are things that I think are important. I always point out that they're not always equal as far as their monthly payment. And that's what I'm dealing with is really focused on that. So I just want to make sure they always understand that. And so anytime that they want to see something, we get the address and give them specific numbers when we can.
Right. And that's how we prepare and best serve our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're gonna talk about interest rates, and you would think that would be me talking about interest rates, and I will a little bit here, but I want to talk to you about how are you advising clients that are sitting on low rates, and when I talk about sitting on low rates, meaning they've either bought or refinanced their mortgage during the sub 3% mortgage rate times. How do you advise them when they're wondering when it's time to make a move?
So again, it all ties back into motivation. If you're having a child or two, or you're upsizing or downsizing, it really just, are you going to hold on to that rate and, cram a kid or two more in the house? Like if you bought with room to grow, sure. But I think more so life events play a big part in whether somebody's going to buy another home. Now, whether they sell that initial home is completely up to them and the position they're in. My team, Venona Residential, we try to help people build wealth. And so sometimes selling the home that you're currently in that has a 2.75% rate, it's not always the best move. Sometimes you need to capitalize and build on what you already have and turn that into maybe a long-term rental or a furnished short-term rental. That way you're creating passive income, especially with the lower rate, but you're also gaining that appreciation year over year if you're in a position to buy the next home
without selling,
without the proceeds. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I really love your take on wealth accumulation through real estate. I mean, I think that's if you look at the stats nationwide, I mean, it's still it's not even remotely close. It is the number one vehicle for wealth creation in this country for every income level, even the top 1% is there. I mean, and for the most part, most folks don't have a ton of additional, assets on a monthly basis to invest with. Most of the time it's through their 401ks or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. But you got to live somewhere, and that comes with a housing payment. And if there's an opportunity to make those, still make your monthly payments, but actually grow through, equity growth or principal a mortgage reduction, building equity, that's definitely a good approach. And I love the idea that you have that property management capability. I mean, that's always the thing that when I'm talking to someone, it's, do you have the stomach to be a landlord? And, most people don't, but that you have the ability to say, hey, you don't need to necessarily be super involved in the process. Let us manage it for you. I think would make it easier for a lot of folks to say, you know what, I'm gonna hold this. Let's go in, and then we'll buy something else and let Tim and the team manage that. Right.
We do have a few ancillary businesses where we make people pretty much hands off. You might have to take a few phone calls a year, but other than that, it's set it and forget it. We'll take care of it. And, building wealth and using real estate as a vehicle to increase your net worth, and it doesn't come without sacrifice. And it's not easy, and it's not for the faint of heart.
Right.
But it's the more you do it, the easier it becomes, especially when you have a professional in your corner that can, advise you in the way that they need to.
Let's stay with interest rates. So we're talking about what we call the lock-in effect of people not selling. But how are interest rates affecting buyer psychology right now?
So I feel like with the fluctuation of interest rates, it directly correlates with consumer confidence. Interest rates go up, consumer confidence goes down. Interest rates go down, everybody's a buyer. And so the conversations that we have with folks is more so, let's figure out what stability looks like. Let's figure out what that monthly payment starts at and what the ceiling is. And then let's reverse engineer and calculate that number into a sales price. The interest rate absolutely matters for the longevity of the loan, but the sales price and the monthly payment are bigger factors, in my opinion, than the interest rate.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely love that approach. I mean, it's, I don't know that I necessarily like the way that the term goes, but it's true. Marry the house, date the rate is the idea that people talk about. That the mortgage isn't, you might be taking out a 30-year mortgage, but you're very unlikely to have that for 30 years. When rates improve, you can get that. I don't think anyone should ever make a home buying decision based off of mortgage rates. And that's not just me saying if rates are higher, I don't think you buy, I was saying the same thing when rates were 2%. Mm-hmm. Don't run and buy a house just because rates are 2.75%. Right. You buy a house when you are ready. And then and the idea of trying to time the market based on home prices or based on interest rates, I mean, that's a fool's errand. I mean, you can get lucky and do it at the right time, but I don't think you should ever try to time the market.
Right.
And interest rates fall into that.
The way to build wealth, in my opinion, is your time in the market rather than trying to time the market.
I love that. All right, let's shift gears again here. I want to talk a little bit about local regulations and just Maryland specific, taxes and numbers. Are there any Maryland specific regulations or quirks maybe out of state buyers should know about?
So one thing that comes to mind is that transfer taxes actually vary from county to county. Mm-hmm. Some are higher, some are lower. I think there's a handful of counties that are just the transfer tax is non-existent.
Yep.
But you need to have professionals who know this so that they can properly calculate your closing costs and whatnot. Sure, everybody gets a HUD-1 or an ALTA at the end of the transaction,
Yep.
But having an agent that can calculate your closing costs with the help of the lender, of course, mm-hmm. We want to stay in our lane
Yep.
and in our scope of expertise. But to be able to provide them a ballpark number on what they're expecting, I mean, I believe that goes a long way.
Yeah. I think it's. I try to have, when I have that initial conversation with the client after they've applied, I always ask for them to send me an address or something that they think fits into their budget, and it's a good starting point for us. As soon as possible, I want to get some numbers for them to digest so they understand what's the monthly payment. How much money am I going to need for closing? We can make adjustments from there too once they kind of see those things. But I want them to see what the closing costs are, so there's not any surprises or understanding, or it's not just me saying you need X amount of dollars to closing. I want them to understand why that is, and part of that is, the big ticket item I always talk about on at a closing is transfer taxes and what the state and county charge from the buyer and seller to purchase a property. In Maryland, it can be one of the more expensive in our, like, I'll call the DMV area. It's probably the more expensive one. But the good part is that, when it comes time to refinancing, when rates drop, it's one of the cheaper states. So, these jurisdictions, state, county, all are making money somehow. And one of the way that the state of Maryland does it is transfer taxes. You've talked about in the past, I want to get your take a little bit. I'm not going to say you're passionate about it, but yeah, I know it's really, really important to you when we talk about some of the tests that you can get done for your buyer. You talk about radon testing. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about, why you think that's important and maybe sometimes why it's missed or some agents don't think it's as important thing to test for.
Yeah, so I think ultimately a lot of folks, buyers, first time, second time, they don't know about radon. They don't know the harmful effects of radon. They don't know what it is. They've never even heard the word before. And so while there are some areas in Maryland where radon's not as prevalent, we always recommend radon testing. It can be done at the same time as the home inspection. It's usually under $200, give or take, depending on who you're using. It's a 48-hour test, and it protects your family and your family's health long term. If you do need to mitigate radon or remediate, then you can actually negotiate that as a part of your home inspection. And it's just, again, for the value that it provides, it's well worth it. And depending on where you're moving from, you may not have ever heard of radon before.
Yeah, I mean, you always got to take care of your family, and
Right.
and it seems like a simple step to take, and it can be huge.
Absolutely.
How about any insights on? We talked a little bit about property taxes by county, but property taxes, homeowners insurance that might shock people that maybe they don't realize or know about.
Right. So Maryland has a program. It's the homestead tax credit. And basically what it does is it caps the assessment that's done annually. It caps it at 10%. And in the past few to 5 years, we've actually seen rapid appreciation.
Yeah.
So that's actually come in pretty clutch for a lot of people. You can apply for it and get the ball rolling as soon as the deed is recorded, which is, 30, 45, 60 days, depending on the county. But it's really helped people mitigate high property taxes or, substantial increases in assessment.
Yeah, I think that that's property tax. That's a whole nother topic of conversation. People have opinions on property tax, but that's a downside. If there's a downside of your home value going up, is that
Right.
The county wants a bigger cut of that, and it's a great protection. I think sometimes people miss it, like you said. Like you might get something in the mail from the county, you're like, I don't think I need to do anything with this. No, you definitely need to do something with that. It will slow down the increase of property taxes as you start seeing appreciation.
Yeah. So I'm actually unsure if the state actually proactively encourages people to take action, but I know as a realtor, like my team, we do. Our title company that we use does.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure that you send out
Yeah.
emails as well. So that's 3 points of contact. If you didn't sign up for it or register for it after that,
right. Might be
on
on
you.
you. Yeah. What about homeowners insurance? I know that's kind of become I think it's become a bigger topic here recently with just like everything, a lot of, inflation. Homeowners insurance has not missed that as well. So we've seen some higher premiums. What is your take on homeowners insurance? Any tricks or things to be looking for?
I would say my best advice is to find a local broker or agent that can really help you shop around, meaning you're not filling out 10 forms online for 10 different companies. But you also need to know what you're shopping for. So you need to know what your liability coverage is going to be. You need to know what the replacement cost of the dwelling is going to be. It's not always just about let's find the cheapest insurance, because you can modify insurance to be affordable and competitive, but still you want to make sure that you have the appropriate coverage.
Yeah. I mean, and one of the things that we're seeing a lot with insurance now, I've noticed probably in the last year, is the focus on roofs.
Yes.
Is like, it kind of came out of nowhere. I had a client saying they were having trouble getting a property insured because of the roof, was the age of the roof. And I remember saying, just call a different age. I mean, that doesn't sound right. But now that's suddenly become a huge thing out there. And that's probably, of all the things I feel like insurance agents are looking at, the roof is the number one. And I think that's because they've been getting quite a bit of claims. People have been, have a hailstorm, they make an insurance claim. So that's become an area where it's really, really important. And I actually had a recent closing with a buyer who they couldn't get insured. But so like you said, because this market is the muted seller's market, I like that term. I'm going to be using that one. They were able to negotiate having the seller actually put the roof on, because at the end of the day, it was like, we can't get insured. So you're not selling this house if someone can't get insurance on it. So finding a good insurance agent that advise you on that is really, really important.
Right.
We talked about how it's really important to act as a team, and we'll talk about collaboration now. From your perspective, what does it look like when an agent and a mortgage professional are in perfect sync?
So it should be seamless. We should be unified in all of our responses. Obviously, you're handling the lending side, financials. I'm handling the actual real estate transaction and everything else outside of that for the most part. If they ask you a question that you're comfortable answering, they should get a similar answer that I would provide, and vice versa. And then, of course, if we're, if it's outside of my scope of expertise, that's a, hey, call Pat question.
Yeah.
But we should be on the same page at all times. If there's, a hiccup or any good news or bad news, you and I should be the first two people that communicate and then deliver the message. And we do that. We do that pretty well.
Yeah, I think that, I certainly run into situations where I'll get asked a question that is not in my scope or in my lane, that's the word we like to use. And I'll say, that's a Tim question, because I definitely, if I feel like I could be treading an area where I may give a different answer,
right,
I want to make sure that we're in sync and in lockstep with that. But yeah, I think that's, a really important part to it. It's critical. So, Tim, when it comes to this, how early do you loop the lender in, and what information do you need from them?
So when I field a call, somebody's calling, texting, emailing, their referral, whatever it may be, I have an introductory conversation, let them know who I am, what I do, and then their next stop, hopefully right after that call, is you.
Right.
Because we need to have them talk to you about affordability, not how much I can spend, but how much can I afford, and then know exactly what they need to do to get the ball rolling, because without being pre-approved and knowing their spending power and how quickly you can move and how quickly they can move, it's hard for me to have a lot of the conversations that I need to in my initial buyer strategy session.
Yeah, it drives me crazy when I have a client, particularly a first-time home buyer or someone, maybe doing their second deal, someone that's not done a lot of these transactions. Mm-hmm. We'll say, when I'll call and say, hey, are you ready? Let's go ahead and do the pre-approval. Let's talk about it. I'm going to apply when I find the house. And we talk about, that's just backwards. That doesn't, well, do you know what the payment's going to be? Do you even know if you qualify for that?
Right.
Do you know how much money you need? These are all the things that we should be talking about up front. We're otherwise, you're going to be you're just going to be showing them houses that maybe they don't qualify for, or ultimately the worst possible thing is going to make an offer. Then I run some numbers and they're like, no, that payment's too high. I'm not comfortable with that. Well, shouldn't have been, looking at those properties anyway until you knew exactly, what that was going to look like for you. And because we talk a lot about the idea of purchase power, which is what's the most you can qualify for as far as a price, which is good to know. It's good for you to know, good for them to know. If they're having trouble finding something, they know how high they can go. But the most important thing is comfort level. They need to be comfortable with the monthly payment. They need to be comfortable with the money for closing. Tim and I aren't making their mortgage payment. That's the direction you're going to go in hopes that you can find something in that price point that matches them. And if it doesn't, that's when you have that conversation saying, well, if we went to 500, I know you qualify for that. Let's maybe talk with Pat. Let's re-look at those numbers and see if maybe you'd be comfortable with a $75 a month higher payment or whatever it might end up being. Those are the conversations we need to have really before you get serious and get out there and look.
Right. And we need to lead with expertise. And if I don't know your spending power, it doesn't matter. Like, I can collect every other piece of information, all of your criteria, your timeline, etc. I don't know, and I can't be confident in showing you any house. So, and sometimes, we're scared to overwhelm the consumer who is soon to be a client, because it is a lot of information to take in at once. It's like drinking from a fire hose, or trying to. But again, you just lead with setting expectations, telling them what the next step is, and you should always close pretty much every conversation with, here's what's going to happen next. That way they're not caught off guard with the next step of the process.
When it happens.
But you have to help them understand and instill in them, I am the expert, And I am doing these things or asking these things of you to help you become a successful homeowner.
Yeah. One of the things, just kind of getting, staying with our partnership and working together as a team, I really appreciate the way that you and your team submit your offers. In that there's, an email that goes out to the listing agent, copies me in it, gives me visibility on what's going on, and then that you break the offer down. What the price, all the particulars that go into the offer. I mean, it's on the contract that you've attached,
right?
But you're not going to make the agent, at least right away, like comb through the whole offer to figure, okay, it's this price. They're asking for settlement, like whatever it might be. You summarize it right there, and then you tell them about me and that your comfortability with me, and then that I'll be reaching out to you, because as soon as it goes out, you let me know I sent the offer. As soon as I can, I'm calling the listing agent, taking the outward approach of reaching out. I'm always disappointed when I don't get to call them before they call me. Like I almost take it as a challenge. I'm calling the listing agent first. I want to show that I'm on top of things, because the whole overall package is really, really important, from an organized offer that makes sense, a lender who's on the same page, a title company that they're familiar with, that you put a part of it, a home, all the things that go into it, because the offer itself is judged not just on the home price. I mean, the sales price is the most important. How much the seller's getting is there, but most of the times. But there's a slew of other things that are going to make or break the offer.
Of course, and I'm going to figure out one of two things. I copy you on that email. They get your personal cell phone number, which you've approved, of course.
Right. Yeah.
Everything short of your social.
Right.
And I'm going to know, like I said, one of two things. I'm going to know that you're going to call them and have a great conversation about their creditworthiness and their qualifications, or you're not going to get a call and you're going to get their voicemail, and then I think I know what type of agent I'm working with on the other side.
Yeah, especially if they don't call back.
Exactly. And then I just take that as I need to put in a little bit more effort, because, again, everything comes back to the client. Like, I'm not going to be spiteful and I'm not going to be irritated, because maybe they're not as attentive as I am. Maybe they're a part-time agent, whereas I'm a full-time agent. Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. It's the house. I mean,
it's the house that they want to buy. Yeah. So you're gonna deal with.
I need to know how much effort to put in, yeah. And if sometimes I have to exert a little bit more than the other side, so be it.
Talking about the buyers, what's the number one mistake buyers make that delay closings?
The number one mistake that buyers make, I would say, is, it's not everybody, of course, but I would say lack of urgency. So what I've found, just based on observation, if I don't set the expectation, which of course I do now, on what happens after going under contract, people tend to think, oh, I have a contract on a house, we're going to ride this wave all the way to closing and we're good to go.
I already have the mortgage approval.
When in all actuality, like, once you start writing an offer and then it gets accepted, that's where the fun begins, and that's where everything becomes so intense. It's fun for us because we do it day in and day out, and we have systems and processes. But just submitting an earnest money deposit, scheduling the inspections, which we fully handhold to do that, and just like making sure that everybody's meeting their contingency deadlines. And we play a big part in that because we are supposed to be the advocate for the client, saying, hey, we have a 10-day inspection window, but let's try and knock the inspections out of day 2 or 3, depending on the day of the week and the timing. So that way we have that much more time to decide, negotiate, and overall just get a consensus on whether this house is a good fit or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's, another reason why I love partnering with you, Tim, is that you express that urgency to the clients. I mean, we often use a strategy of closing quickly, or at least offering the ability to close very quickly, 10 to 14 days, to incentivize the seller. And, you'll ask me, are we okay with a 2-week, whatever it might be. And, my answer always is, as long as the client, when I say jump, they say how high, it's not, anything else. I mean, we need all the parties, especially for the quicker closings. We need all the parties, the agents, the client, the title company, appraiser, and like everybody together must come together as a team. We're set up to be able to close that quickly, and you've seen, we've closed very quickly, but it's really, really important that everybody, including the client, has the urgency. And I always know that when I talk to your clients and kind of stress that they've already been coached that's the case.
Yeah, and I think we do a really good job at reading our client, because if we're working with somebody who we don't feel can handle a 14-day close, because it's a big deal. Like, you're moving quickly. You're moving out of your old place. You're moving into your new place. You're allocating a ton of funds, 5 figures, sometimes 6, to different places and areas and entities. It's a lot. And so I know that we can coach and guide them through it. But if they're not up for it and they need a 21, 28, 35-day close, we're able to assess that and then report back to them and say, all right, well, this is the first day on the market for this house. Do you want to close in 14 days or do you need a little bit more time? And then we can discuss the probability of our offer being accepted.
We'll stay on the buyers, and this is not a buyer bashing thing we're going into, but it's just things that we're running into and advice we're trying to help. What's one mistake you see buyers make during the maybe during the process or of buying a home that frustrates you?
Poor communication. And I say that because I do pride myself in my communication and all of my partners that I work with. And sometimes what this looks like is uncertainty. And it could be an avoided text, a missed call, glossing over an email. Poor communication can also show up as maybe the goalpost is moved. Maybe they want a bigger house. Maybe they want a smaller house. Maybe they want a 4-bedroom instead of a 3, or vice versa. You have to communicate that to your agent so that we're still going in the right direction. Because there's no good use in showing you homes that don't fit your newfound criteria.
What about, let's talk about mistakes. What mistakes do you see other real estate agents make that frustrates you?
So, of course, communication, picking up the phone. But I think the biggest point I would like to make here is collecting information from your client. And so on the buyer side, that could be ensuring that they are pre-approved, they are educated on the process, everything that we just talked about that's quick moving and can be complex. As a listing agent, I want to make sure that the person who's making an offer on the house and their agent are well versed and know exactly what their responsibilities are so we can get to the finish line quickly. On the listing side, commonly what I see, especially with condos, is a lack of documentation. Yeah. So it's investor ratio, it's delinquency rate. I'm not saying order the whole resale pack. Actually, I am saying order the whole resale packet. But you can have your client call the condo or HOA association or HOA and gather this information, or at least get an idea. But I'm sure one you can appreciate as well is like FHA approval.
Yeah. It blows me away, honestly, when I see a listing. Maybe I'll call the listing agent and ask them, there's ways that we can check eligibility for FHA or VA for condominiums in particular. But sometimes it's not clear what's the name of the condo association. There might be multiple things. So I want to go and get clarity, and where I'll say, do you know if it's FHA approved, and they don't, and that just blows my mind. You're selling this,
right?
You're representing someone selling it, and you always want to have more buyers that can buy it than less buyers. And hey, listen, if it's something that can't be done, you need to know that and be able to direct. You're going to waste a lot of people's time. Nothing worse than, I'll have a client that's making an offer. We'll call about the offer. Like I said, how strong they are. And then the listing agent will tell me, well, we just had 2 other deals fall through because of the condo. And, I'm like, how did that get missed on the front end?
Why is that not in the agent remarks in the MLS? Just saying.
Yes.
But also, to best advise your client, you're listing their condo, and so you have to inform them on what type of buyer pool they have. If it's not FHA approved, it's got a high investor ratio, it's got a high delinquency rate, you need to be able to communicate, hey, 75% of buyers probably aren't a good fit for this, so we have a smaller pool of buyers, so we may be on the market longer, or we may be seeking out a certain or specific type of financing, so we need to do X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
The marketing changes.
All right. let's just talk about something kind of personal here for you. How has your commitment to personal development changed the way you do business?
So the same way that I try to improve myself on a daily basis, whether it be reading a book, hitting the gym, meditating, you can do those same things in the workplace. And it's all about education. It's about streamlining your processes, having conversations either with your team or with, maybe top agents in your office. But you have to continuously be curious and be willing to grow. So I feel like it's helped me a lot, because if you just can move the needle ever so slightly each day, you're better than the previous.
Okay, Tim. We're entering the rapid fire question section of the podcast.
Oh boy.
We name this the Gannon Gauntlet. Are you ready to enter the gauntlet?
I think so. Yes,
right.
I'll do my best.
We'll see about that. All right. What's your favorite room in the house and why?
I would say hands down the kitchen. It's where everybody congregates, celebrates. It's where food comes from, of course.
Yeah.
It's just it's the best and happiest place in the house. And yeah, I spend probably 75% of my time in my kitchen, whether I'm cooking or not.
Well, then this is going to go. One of my other questions here in the gauntlet was, tell us about your cooking. What is your signature dish?
Signature dish, number one, hands down, is the pork chop.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So juicy, tender, broiled for a little crisp on the outside. I prefer bone in, gets a better flavor. But I could do boneless pork chops as well.
So it's funny. About 2 years ago, I was at the Parkway restaurant in Bethany Beach, and I don't normally order a pork chop when I'm at a restaurant. I don't know why. I just didn't think, but it sounded really good on the menu, and I ordered it, and it was the greatest, certainly the best pork chop I've ever had. I haven't had yours yet, and we're going to have that. But it had a blueberry compote that was part of it.
Okay.
That was like that mixed with it. And now every time I've gone back there, they haven't had it. They're always saying it's not in season, so it's my pork chop white whale. I'm chasing it, and hope to finally get it again.
I hope I can duplicate that for you. Actually,
yes, I'm gonna hold you up. I'm gonna definitely want to have that with you. All right, next one. What's your go-to book right now?
Ooh, so I'm actually reading two. So I'm reading The Miracle Morning, and I'm reading Atomic Habits. Both are pretty entry-level books. They complement each other very well. The Miracle Morning, basically, it's a structure on how to start your day on a positive note, ensure that you're productive. Atomic Habits is, as far as I've gotten, about habit stacking and just making sure that you can stay consistent throughout the day.
That's great. I mean, I find it amazing that you're balancing reading two books at the same time. I almost think of it when I watch two Netflix shows at the same time, and then my wife starts getting confused at the characters. She intertwines the characters on the two different shows we're watching, and I'm like, no,
yeah,
no, honey, this is the wrong one. So amazing. I love that you're doing the steps that that's the peace of mind and makes you a better real estate agent, but just a happier person.
Yeah.
What's the weirdest or most unexpected thing you've seen in a real estate transaction?
I would say unexpected. I haven't had a lot of weird experiences. I've read a lot of interesting stories, but the most unexpected, I helped one of our clients purchase a home in Baltimore City. Pretty moderate price point. It was a flip. I'm always leery about flips, but we went into the house with an open mind. I think it was house like number 50, because if anybody sells in Baltimore City, they understand. The house passed the inspection with flying colors, just a few minor items here and there. Really well done. Workmanship and craftsmanship was just top notch. We're doing the final walkthrough. I do have a process and a checklist. Go upstairs, cut on the sink, cut on the bathtub, do the same for the second bath, turn them all off, come downstairs. We're going to check out the middle floor. Out the chandelier comes a water fountain.
Oh my gosh.
So at this point, obviously my concern is what's happening right in front of me and how the client feels. But in the back of your mind, you're always like, man, this transaction is dead. Absolutely dead. And you couldn't blame the buyer at all. Called the listing agent. They got the seller on it. Got everything taken care of, fixed it. We were out there 2 days later with the inspector and just to check everything out, and they moved forward with the purchase, and it's been a great home to them.
Yeah, I mean, that's why the final walkthrough is so important. And yeah, if you can identify what the problem is and get it fixed and you know what it is, then yeah.
Right. Because if I don't run those sinks, the tubs, flush the toilets, that could be the buyer's first week in the house.
Yeah, nightmare.
And then it's their problem.
Yeah.
And there's property damage and personal property damage. It could have been a catastrophe.
Tim, if you weren't in real estate, what would you be doing?
This was a challenging one. I'm very passionate about coffee and cooking, but I would say probably a coffee bean roaster.
Coffee bean roaster. Okay.
Yep. Or somewhere in the coffee industry.
Okay.
But I think roasting coffee beans, like that might be my job down the line, like when I'm retired and stuff, and just, want to work with like coffee beans and the chemistry of like roasting them to different temperatures and whatnot.
we met at Starbucks before this. I did notice you were really focused in on what was going on behind the counter. So that was maybe part of you. You didn't even realize you were doing. Yeah,
I was.
All right. Last one. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Always trust your gut. Hands down. It sounds like a sham. It's cliche. Call it what you will. Your gut will not lie to you ever. If something's not right, it's probably not right.
Yeah, at least it should give you the time to pause and research, recalibrate if necessary. I love that.
Correct.
Well, congratulations. You survived the Gannon Gauntlet.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It wasn't too bad.
All right. We're going to get here, and we're in the home stretch now. For listeners who want to connect with you, Tim, what is the best way for them to reach out?
So the best way to reach out would be by phone. I'm sure that you'll plug in my link tree below.
Yeah, absolutely.
A phone call is just hands down the best way to communicate with somebody. Even a text message, just direct conversation. But also they can visit our website, www.vedonaresidential.com. There's also information on there how to contact us.
How about any free resources for buyers and sellers?
We have a plethora of free resources for buyers, sellers. We have a blog spot on there where you can learn about upcoming development in Maryland and DC. It's just a ton of good information to have.
Are you accepting any new clients right now?
Absolutely.
I figured that was the answer, but I just wanted that. And now, one final thought, Tim. Why are you so passionate about serving the Maryland market?
Pat, this is where I grew up. Like I said, I'm a Maryland native. I've lived here for 36 years. It's where, I have friendships. It's where I've built a relationship with my significant other. It's where I purchased a home. It's where I've built my business. Everything is just here. I've had friends and family move away. Some come back. But I'm just very passionate about living in Maryland and the type of people that are here and the continuous growth. I know it's been a rough year for sports, but go O's, go Ravens.
Well, I won't comment on that.
Thank you.
But thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and I really mean it. Anyone listening that needs or wants to talk to a real estate agent just for some advice for our local market, Tim is the go-to guy. You won't be disappointed. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Pat.
Yeah. And that's the end of episode 4 of the Hangin with Gannon podcast. Check out, we'll be back for episode 5 soon. And as always, thanks for hanging with Gannon.